Hi, volleyball fans, and welcome back to Volley Talk, the podcast created for volleyball lovers who want to dig deep into what is going on in NCAA and international volleyball. I'm your host, Sarah Pavin. I'm an Olympian, beach volleyball world champion, former Nebraska Cornhusker, and longtime pro, both indoor and on the beach.
And I'm Adam Schultz, former indoor player, international volleyball coach, and the show's resident stat guy.
Overseas pro leagues have started their regular season. Stay tuned for some updates on that. We're fresh. Okay, we just had some preseason stuff, so once things get moving, we will give some updates with that.
And we'll keep you up to date on if there are going to be good matches you should watch and things like that. And we'll figure out how to mix in a little international flavor for everyone.
We were asked how to watch the league, so just as a reminder, the Italian, Japanese, and Polish leagues are all on Volleyball TV, which has a subscription, and I read that the Turkish league you can watch on YouTube if you have a VPN. That is how you can check some of those out. Champions League won't start for a little while, but we'll keep you posted when it does. NCAA conference play continued, so we had a ton of engagement and questions this week. We love to see how passionate our listeners and viewers are about their favorite players and teams. There were several interesting results. We're going to dive into a couple in particular that we found extra interesting, shall we say. So let's get started.
So before we get into the weekly highlights, I want to acknowledge that I may have had the take that went sour the fastest last episode.
Which
I
was?
predicted Stanford was going to win the conference as they were losing to Louisville at home. Now, I will say Pitt also lost, which we'll talk about.
Which he also threw out. Pitt will lose to a medium team.
So I'm just saying Stanford still has a chance to finish top. The loss to Louisville doesn't help their cause.
No.
And I appreciate all of the engagement letting me know that my take didn't age well. Fair, acknowledged. But it was a good game.
So things stayed pretty steady this week from a rankings perspective in the NCAA. We saw Minnesota drop to 14 from 10.
They're having a rough go.
They are dealing with a lot of injuries, and we'll talk about this whole situation a bit later. Miami rose to 18 from 22. USC dropped to 22 from 17. Missouri dropped to 25 from 21. And we saw a couple new additions to the top 25 this week, with Indiana and Colorado joining at 20 and 24 respectively.
Well deserved for those two teams.
We also had a few noteworthy or maybe more unexpected results this week. We saw Texas and Tennessee go 5. Not to take anything away from Tennessee, but Texas has been like rolling and like number 2 in the country, so I'm not sure I expected that to go 5.
No, I didn't either.
We saw UCLA beat both Minnesota and USC 3 straight.
I was a little surprised. I watched the UCLA-USC game. It was interesting. I don't think we're going to cover that one this week, but USC looked a little young.
I was going to say did not look good.
Yeah, they're super physical. I thought they made mistakes down the road. I thought they struggled to pass.
I like their middles, though.
Yeah, exactly. Their left side struggled a little bit. And in fairness, UCLA's left side played very well.
Which they really need them to.
Yes.
And we saw PK on the right side.
Didn't
She's
go
back.
well. Yeah, it didn't go well, though.
Yeah, I'm very curious about those decisions. But
that's not a long-term solution there, in my opinion.
Yeah. Arizona took down Baylor in 3. We also watched that one.
Yeah, I wasn't expecting that one either. Baylor did not look at, they're physical. They have some very good players, but they are not taking care of the details around the ball. And Arizona just kept pushing. So a good win for Arizona. That conference
The
is
left
all
side
over the
also
place.
played really well for Arizona that match.
True.
Florida beat Missouri in 4.
Missouri is going through it. They're going to drop out of the rankings. They cannot put it together.
Gone steadily downward over the last few weeks. Indiana got beaten by Michigan State 3 straight. Welcome to the top 25, then you go lose to Michigan State.
I mean, Michigan State has been making a push. They've been playing better. They are on the rise. I think teams need to take them seriously.
There were two other big upsets that I'm sure you're wondering why we haven't brought them up yet. Those are the two matches we're going to talk about this week. So obviously those were Penn State versus Wisconsin and Pitt versus Miami. Those were kind of the like what we'll call weekly highlights. So that was like the weekly rundown of what has been happening in the NCAA. Let's take a look at Penn State versus Wisconsin. I think, you know, after Izzy Stark's departure and kind of the trajectory that Penn State has been on, the absolute shellacking they took from Nebraska last week, I personally did not expect much from this match.
You mean Wisconsin 3-0?
I was expecting Wisconsin to handle this one in a pretty straightforward manner.
Agreed. I thought they were well set up to defend Kennedy Martin and make the rest of Penn State beat them. And
what about them made you think that they were set up to defend Kennedy Martin?
I mean, they're big. They're a good blocking team.
They're not big like they have been.
No, they're not.
And their blocking stats have gone down the drain compared to what we're used to seeing.
Fair, but they're still Mimi Collier and Carter Booth
Mimi Collier's a good blocker. Carter Booth's a good blocker.
They're not Anna Smrek-Retke big with Sarah Franklin, but they're still big. And given that Penn State offense has generally been one-dimensional this last little while, I figured it would be all about shutting her down. I think Furbringer's a pretty good digger, so I figured...
Who didn't play.
Right. In general, looking at that lineup, they defend that angle ball pretty well. I thought it was going to be a rough night for Penn State.
A lot of nights have been rough for Penn State. Let's not kid ourselves. But Kennedy Martin's been showing up time and time again. Just she hasn't been enough.
And she's played really, really well. And this is going to lead into something we talk about later. But it was going to generally come down to Mimi Collier ++ against Kennedy Martin. Basically.
So I know we're going to have people be like, well, Charlie Furbringer didn't play and Penn State has had time to get used to their new setter. Well, I know Wisconsin fans are going to chime in and be like, we didn't have Charlie Furbringer and Penn State has had time to get used to their new setter. Fair.
But it's not like Penn State hasn't gone through their own set of injuries. And I would argue that losing Izzy Stark is probably a little bit bigger than losing Charlie Furbringer. They're both very close, but your starting setter is your starting setter. I understand that.
But did Charlie Furbringer being on the bench make Wisconsin's passing fall apart? I don't think so.
Yeah.
Because they made that poor girl, that freshman setter, run around like a marathon runner. Okay?
That was the biggest thing that I noticed in that match. You would think that you bring in a setter who hasn't played, who is your backup setter, you are dialed into making that player's life as easy as possible, so the only thing they have to do is set. That needs to be the focus. I actually thought this was Sheffield's biggest mistake of the match, was not subbing in more DSs or not finding a change to improve the passing. I still think Wisconsin should have won this match. I understand Charlie's hurt. I understand you lose your centerpiece and everybody's a little bit out of rhythm, but I just think they're a better team than Penn State is. They have more pieces. They should have been able to win this match, in my opinion.
Oh, 100%. Yeah. And they did sub in some DSs. They saw Warren come in as a DS. But the thing for me is Collier was terrible.
Not good. Again, part of that is she was getting set from everywhere. And you're
what
not in rhythm.
What do you think Kennedy Martin's been doing all season?
Totally fair.
Penn State's not a good passing team. They haven't been passing well. She's had to hit out of system all season long, and she's been scoring just fine. Mimi Collier, you're the go-to hitter. You need to score out of system. At one point, in the third set, I think she was hitting 0.
Well, she had 2 kills in the first set to Kennedy Martin's 10. Kennedy Martin had 10 points in the first set. They just didn't look prepared to shut her down.
Well, okay. Kennedy Martin was hitting over top of the block.
I understand that. Kennedy Martin is very good. She's going to score points, but they didn't look prepared to stop her at all.
It was pretty bad. Kennedy Martin is very clearly a thumb-up hitter, so if she's hitting on the right side, thumb up, she's taking the ball cross-court towards zone 1. Yes, okay, she hit some balls over the block.
100%.
If a player does that, wow. She was doing it consistently, though, so I did expect an adjustment. But if somebody's doing that, okay, fine.
But here's the other thing that I saw. She's got a little bit, I don't want to call it a weird arm swing, but she's one of the few players collegiately who really uses her wrists and brings the ball across her body. So you said thumb up, which is accurate, but she also kind of opens her shoulders a little bit and then comes back across her body. And the number of times I saw defenders on the cross-court side of the court stepping to their left because they saw the shoulders open, and then the ball being beaten to their right because she's snapping across her body. To me, that's a lack of preparation. You should have had somebody hitting those balls. You need to understand what that hitter is doing to you. You can't be caught moving the wrong direction. That's a lack of preparation.
Well, even if you didn't prepare, you have 78 people on your bench. Somebody needs to identify what's happening and be like, it's an illusion. Her shoulders are going to go, but you need to trust your positioning and stay, because the act, she's bringing it back, but the act of snapping the wrist across is dragging the ball more to the right. So somebody needed to say that, because it was painful watching these defenders just continually get beaten by the same shot. You know where she's going to go.
Yeah.
You know she wants to go thumb up. Even if she's hitting over the block, get your position 6, like hanging out a little bit shaded that way to try to counteract something.
Make her beat you down the line.
Yeah, make her beat you down the line. 100%. When you have a player like that, you want to set up your defense, your block defense, in a way that makes them want to do what they don't want to do. And then if they're still going to score, good for her.
Yeah.
I truly believe she probably still would have scored, but at least you're making an adjustment.
Yeah, you can't let a great hitter beat you with what they're comfortable with. You have to make them beat you with what they're uncomfortable with. I don't think they did that. I thought that was just poor from Wisconsin from a preparation standpoint. I thought number 1 should have been taken off the floor. She was not very good. She didn't score and she didn't pass. I didn't love their serving strategy. It didn't work for me.
No, it was incredibly disappointing to watch. And I'm going to go back to it because, I have to. Mimi Collier was so bad.
Yeah.
So bad. And I understand players have bad games, whatever.
But we talked about this. What happens when your best players
bring this up.
Don't show up?
We brought this up about Mimi Collier, and I think I said she's not it for me a few weeks ago, maybe. I'm not going to let this one game determine her season. Everybody has bad games. But my question is, for Kelly Sheffield, what are you doing? You're seeing your star hitter, the player that you're literally depending on most matches, struggling so much, lined up against Kennedy Martin, who, as a thumb-up hitter, isn't really hitting in the direction of her block anyway. And I understand Mimi Collier's a good blocker. She's probably your best option as an outside to block Kennedy Martin, but she's not hitting that angle. She's hitting over top of your middle. So why not reverse your rotation or flip your rotation to get her hitting against your setter and try to get some rhythm going? He didn't make any changes. He didn't flip the rotation. Sub Vajicic out. She's doing nothing for you. Make a change.
Yeah, I didn't understand that from a coaching standpoint, from a strategy standpoint. It just didn't make sense to me.
If players aren't playing well, take them off the court. Make an adjustment. That was incredibly disappointing.
Now, on the flip side, we said Penn State needs to have a response to what's been going on. They can either wallow in self-pity that their setter left and this and that and they can't pass, or they can decide as a group that they're going to show up and they're not going to let these things define them as a team. And they did that. You have to give them credit. They are still not very good at the things they need to work on.
They passed better.
But they were better, right? Mendelssohn got some sets. They ran a little bit of medal. Kennedy Martin was outstanding. She played a very, very good game.
She was unstoppable.
But there were other pieces around there that did a good job as well.
Juravicius scored some points.
Yep.
Emmy Selman is still not it for me.
Agreed.
I'm not really sure what she did. But Juravicius scored some points. She brought energy, which I think is important because she's the type of player who wears her emotions on her face. And you can tell when she's unhappy.
Yeah. And they were a little better defensively.
Yes. You could see Jillian Grimes kind of running the back row, which she needs to be assertive and do that because Juravicius and they're bringing Ava in for Selman in the back row, but they need her to kind of take control back there. And I think their setter did a pretty good job.
Better. I don't think you could have asked for a better response given the situation and where they were coming from. While I didn't love Wisconsin's game, I think you have to give credit to Penn State for what they put on the floor in that situation.
And I will say it again, I did enjoy watching kind of the dynamic and the attitude from Penn State, even the way that Katie Schumacher-Cauley was engaging with the girls on the court, you know, how the girls were interacting together, I thought that that was a huge positive for the team, and they definitely looked like they were in it together. Kennedy Martin is the show. She's the franchise. She'll need to continue to be the franchise, but she was very engaged as well. But as disappointed as I was in Wisconsin, that match I was equally happy for and with Penn State.
Yeah. I will say I saw Furbringer raise both hands while she was on the bench, so I think that's a good sign.
Yeah.
I don't know what the injury report on her is.
What is her dislocated her shoulder or something? Is that what?
No, I watched the play and thought it was a shoulder dislocation. That was just kind of
if she raises
watching.
both hands, that's
Yeah, because she was in a sling after the match, so I don't think it's a shoulder dislocation because her hand was above her head. So hopefully that means she's coming back because it's clear that they need her.
They need to pass.
Well,
I don't care who you are. If you're setting every ball from 25 feet off the net, what are you going to do?
I will say Furbringer runs a better tempo off the net than this new girl, and Collier likes hitting that set. The Collier-Furbringer connection, running tempo from different places, suits her well and gets her in rhythm.
Okay.
So we'll see.
We got a ton of listener questions, so I want to incorporate some into what we're discussing today. So one that I think is relevant to this discussion is, do you think it would be a good move for Kennedy Martin to finish out the year at Penn State and jump straight into the pros instead of taking a fourth year? Obviously, education's a major part of the process, but if there was a world for Kennedy to graduate and go play pro, would that be a good move for her? Given how much money she's making from NIL, I would say stick it out.
There's no reason to rush going to pro. The only consideration would be if the USA staff is telling her, you have a potential to start in the 2028 Olympics, but you need to get some international experience. Here is where you can play. We found you a contract. The 2028 Olympics in the US, in LA, with her as the right side, would be the only reason I would go play pro. Otherwise, you make your hundreds of thousands of dollars playing collegiate. You finish your education. She has a bright future ahead of her if she chooses to play pro, and there's no rush.
Well, given how much we've heard she's making at Penn State, do you think the draw of potentially starting in LA Olympics is even worth giving that up? Because I don't think her earning potential as a pro is what she's making now, personally, based on my experience.
If it was me, I might think, well, I can play one more year and make that money and still have a shot at 2028. Like, those two things are not mutually exclusive.
Hypothetically, if it's one or the other, what would you do?
That's a lot of money.
She is not making that money in her first
5 years as a pro.
5 years as a pro. Absolutely not.
That's a tough question. If I was guaranteed the starting spot in the Olympics, I might take the Olympics, but I don't think you can.
Of sport.
Yeah,
you can't guarantee somebody a
That's
spot.
what I'm saying. Well, that money is guaranteed.
That match was the Kennedy Martin show. It was a great show to watch, honestly. I love to see it. Wisconsin.
Yeah, we'll see what the Furbringer injury brings and how long the backup setter will be in.
But I will say Maddie Quest did a good job coming in on the right side for Egan.
I really like her.
She did a good job.
I don't think that was a huge step down. Like, that definitely wasn't the reason they didn't win the match.
No. And a freshman, so that's good.
Yeah, bright future for her.
Yeah. All right. Another highly anticipated match, which I got lots of messages about this one, was Pitt versus Miami. Pitt dominated or handily won the first two sets, only to be reverse swept.
Oh, the reverse sweep.
Yeah. Okay. Pitt just looked, they went from looking like solid to just completely out of it. They could not get anything to work after set two.
Which is interesting, because originally, when you think about going to play at Miami, for those of you who aren't familiar with the venue, it's a high school gym with a low ceiling.
It looks like a high school gym to me.
And so there's definitely the way you pass, the way you play defense. You're 100% cognizant of how low the ceiling is. So normally when you see teams go in there, they struggle in the first set, calibrate and figure out what adjustments they have to see. And I will say visually it makes a difference when there's not as much space and it feels a little bit tighter, especially from a serving standpoint. So
okay, as an aside, as an athlete, I preferred the tighter, more intimate gyms as a spin server. With playing in a basketball arena as a spin server, the depth and like everything was such a trip. So I personally preferred to play in those environments. But we've seen a lot of matches over the last couple of years played at Miami, and we're seeing balls ricochet off that roof like pinball machine.
And serves going into the back wall.
Wow, it's insane.
The highlight of the match has to be Heredia Colon. She was outstanding. She put Miami on her back and won that match.
Literally carried the team.
I have to read you these stats because
Okay.
they're outrageous.
Yeah.
So she set a program record. She took 73 swings in that match. Okay, 5 sets, 38 kills, and hit 342.
38 for 73 is unbelievable.
But that's not the unbelievable part.
How many points did she have total? She had to have over 40.
40 and a half points.
Dang.
Okay. The next closest person took 20 swings. The next closest attacker had 6 kills. And only one other person from her team had over 10 points, and that was Wilson because she had a bunch of blocks at 11.5. She won the match single-handedly. It was outrageous to watch.
So this is another question. Like, this is similar to the Kennedy Martin discussion. Pitt could not stop this girl.
No.
It was
And you knew
wild.
she was getting the ball.
It was wild.
She was It reminded me of watching a men's game. You know how we talk about there are some times where a guy just goes off and you can't touch them? She was that player. She was so much fun to watch in that match. And the setter was like, no, I don't care where anyone else is. I'm just going to set you the ball and we're going to see what happens.
We want to win this game. We're not hiding anything. We're not trying to trick you.
So do
Here we go.
you know where I think that came from? So their assistant coach, he's a Brazilian opposite. His name is Leandro Vissoto. He was on that team that I worked with Bruno, and he only ever wanted to be set. He didn't want anybody else to be set. I guarantee you he was standing on the sidelines going, set that girl. Just
Give her
set her
every
single ball.
Honestly, if a player is playing like that, seriously give them every ball. But Pitt, what were you doing?
Now, in fairness, Babcock was also very good.
We saw some Babcock swagger in that game, and I kind of loved it because it doesn't often come out. The crowd was wild.
Yes, it was.
They were chippy. You know,
I mean, you have two
there was
players
a little
from
bit of flair on the other side.
You got 2 players from the Dominican national team swaggering about that court, and that's the Dominican style. Take it or leave it.
You saw Olivia make some kills and be like, don't even say a word.
Well, she had 52 attempts, had 30 kills. She hit 519 on the match. Like you can't ask anything else of her.
She was very good.
You couldn't expect anything else. Bree Kelly, 18 attempts, hit 0. Unacceptable.
Well, okay, we talked about this while we were watching it. Pitt's passing was rough. And Olivia was doing a really good job. The thing is it became way too predictable when they did pass a good ball. They went to the middle exclusively.
The middle for Miami played blocked very well.
At which point, the Miami middle just committed and was getting blocked.
I think that was Wilson.
Yeah,
Dahlia Wilson blocked very well.
That was the issue, is Pitt's passing was pulling everything off the net, and it was just too predictable when things went well. And I understand the setter's perspective. It's like, okay, I'm exclusively feeding Babcock. I need to try to get the middles involved or something. I understand why she was doing what she was doing, but the passers just completely sewered everything.
The stats for the match were very close. Miami had 8 aces, Pitt had 6. Miami had 9.5 blocks, Pitt had 13, so they won that. Miami outdug them 47-40, so it was close over 5 sets, but Colon was the difference maker. Down the stretch in sets 3, 4, and 5, she was just unstoppable. Pitt could not make adjustments to stop her. Dan Fisher was getting really frustrated on the other side of the court. He was chipping at the refs. He was back and forth. You don't see that from him very often. So I don't know whether he was frustrated with the calls, but I didn't think the reffing was bad.
I didn't think it was bad. The announcers for the Miami games are hardcore
Oh, the
Hurricane
homers.
homers.
100%.
They were accusing him so many times of trying to kill the momentum, of doing this, and kind of like making his responses to certain plays seem almost malicious in how he was responding. And I personally didn't get that vibe.
Me either.
I just thought that he was frustrated. I don't think he was necessarily trying to stall or hold things up. I just think he was
Well, I'm wondering
flabbergasted.
if he was frustrated with his team's execution. I couldn't tell where the frustration was coming from, but I don't see him like that very often.
When I'm thinking about that match, I cannot remember Pitt's left sides at all. I don't remember anything that they did except the Dutch girl getting aced at 13-all.
Yeah, so the Dutch girl didn't play very well. Bayless had 30 attempts. She hit 200. Like,
That's like fine.
she was fine, but she wasn't a factor.
Yeah.
And so when your left sides aren't a factor and the passing is struggling and your middle's hitting 0, it was Babcock versus Colon, and Colon won in the end. That's what happened. They could not pull that match out in Miami on the road. And, I mean, they lost 13-15 in the 5th set. Like, it was close, but, man, what a show. What a show.
Well, and I think the environment made it more exciting.
Oh, absolutely.
So one of the questions that was sent in is, where's the best setting you've ever played? And then this, just to expand, watching the Pitt versus Miami game, a big thing that stood out was the atmosphere. Granted, I hope it's a moment for Miami to realize they shouldn't be putting that kind of product in a middle school gym. Yes, fair. But it got me thinking that those type of environments could be more electric than in a large arena. I'm curious on your thoughts of the best location and what makes an overall great gym atmosphere. Whew. Okay.
When you're not playing at home, my favorite place to play is with fans who are close to the court, who are against you, but funny. There's a line for fans that you can cross very easily. But when you go into somebody else's barn and the fans are kind of up in your grill and it's clever, there's a little bit of back and forth. Like, you kind of look at them and they know. It can be so much fun and it can fuel the game. Those were my favorite matches to play.
So when I was thinking about my college experience, what you just described are the two locations outside of away games that came to mind. It was exactly that. Well, one of them was that, and one of them the fans were kind of mean. The Coliseum at Nebraska was great. It was very intimate. But as an away player, Missouri was exactly what you described. It was in a basketball arena, though, and those fans were funny. They're heckling you, but, like, it's funny. Yeah, you can't help but, like, kind of admire the stuff they come up with. But then...
Fans that put the work in.
Yeah, exactly. Do your homework. But then Texas was another one, but those fans were like legit mean because at the time it was like Nebraska and Texas were
Sounds familiar.
always going back and forth. But I will say, as a pro, my favorite place to play was the match that comes to mind was in Brazil, the final.
In Maracanã?
No, in São Paulo when we played against Osasco, there were 10,000 people. We were playing it was technically a neutral location, but it wasn't. It was like basically a home game for the other team. That was insane.
That was a good match.
And when you have the environment that Miami was able to create on a larger scale, it is just like goosebump inducing. And then of course I could never help myself. You make a play and then you can't help but turn to the crowd and like say something.
Oh, yeah.
That's the kind of player I was. It's not for everybody.
That's the kind of person you are, and I'm going to caveat it to player.
And you're just like, what was that? Say it again.
Yeah.
That's the best. I love antagonizing a hostile crowd.
It's always nice to win in those environments.
Oh, even better. But there's another question. It's clear that Babcock has strong potential to make the transition to international and the national team well. What does she need to do over her final 2 years to set herself up for that transition?
Ooh, good question.
I will give her credit. Her defense has improved tremendously since last season. So I think her stint with the national team probably helped that, and playing at a higher level over the summer. So I will say her defense has improved a lot.
I think two things come to mind. One is just her blocking. She's going to face better, smarter hitters. She's going to have to figure out hand positioning. She's going to have more responsibilities in terms of helping with middles and pipes and just more complex blocking schemes. Being able to kind of figure that piece out, and then just processing the speed and the caliber of the athletes on the other side in terms of when you're attacking, right? Those middle blockers are coming. They're either closing late or they're there. The defenders are a little bit better. So moving the ball around with her wrist and not just being more physical
That's what I was going to say.
than her opponents. Those will be. And I think she's capable of doing that. She's just going to need somebody to go, hey, here's how you're going to have to score at this next level.
Yeah. Because right now she's like, she jumps well, she's big, she's physical. She can just overpower a lot of teams, but at the next level, she's going to have to use that and incorporate a little more creativity as far as wrist movement, finding the block, knowing when to incorporate a good off speed, things like that. And I want to see her spin serving internationally. It is, as we talked about in the summer, it's much harder to spin serve the international ball than the NCAA ball. But I think if she can get a handle on that, it'll just make her like that much more versatile.
Before we hop into more listener questions, there was one other match, and we're not going to talk about this, but I want to highlight something because it's going to come up later when we discuss it. So Kentucky beat Texas A&M 3-1. Texas A&M won the first set 25-21, and then they lost 22-15 and 25-27. Now, I just want to highlight Texas A&M kind of moves with Lednicki, right? So they won the first set. Lednicki had 7 kills. They lost the second set, even though Lednicki had 9 kills, and then she had 3 and 2. Just keep that in mind. We're going to talk about this later on in the episode. Again, highlighting a star player on a team and what is required to win and what happens, when that production isn't there. But Kentucky continues to look good and beat strong opponents.
So we kind of alluded to this at the beginning of the episode. We have gotten a lot of questions pertaining to the Minnesota situation and the number of injuries that they have succumbed to as the seasons progress. I feel like across the board there's been a lot of injuries. Sage Damrow just went down. We saw Glover have to miss a few weeks with, I'm assuming was a concussion, but she also had crutches, so I don't know. Furbringer, Egan. We're just seeing this across the board. A lot of people are wondering what's up, first of all. So a question we received was, as a player, how do you handle a situation like this? With the Minnesota situation, like Julia Hansen, she is having to carry a huge load and end her career in a way that she didn't expect to, with a bunch of young freshmen playing and people who weren't anticipating having to play. And then as a coach, how do you approach the season moving forward? You can't give up, but how do you mentally prepare your team for what is going to end up being a more developmental year than anyone anticipated? Yikes. So if you're not familiar, Minnesota, I think they've lost at least 4, if not more, of their projected starters over the course of the season to injury. So now we're seeing freshmen, developmental players have to come in. We're seeing players who are going to be bench players starting. Injuries wiped out Minnesota, pretty much.
From a coaching standpoint, you can't write off the season. You have to look at the team and go, injuries happen. It's why we have 18 players on the roster, and everybody who is in this program is here because they deserve to be here. We are still going to expect to win, and you have to make sure from a coaching standpoint that the preparation, the environment, the level of expectation is still high.
I think, yeah, for sure has to stay consistent, because all of a sudden if it changes, you're giving the messaging to the other players that you don't believe in them.
100%. For me, when you have developmental players in a position where it's going to be really hard to be successful because you're playing against other teams, you start to talk about decision making more than you talk about results, right? So when you're watching video with the team, you go, hey, that was the right decision. That was a great shot. You just missed. So if you're seeing the block and you're swinging for hands and you miss, great. If you see that the angle swing is open and you hit it a foot out of bounds, hey, great swing. That's what we're trying to do. So you start teaching your athletes, like, this decision making is what you want, and then as the touches come, the execution will come on top of that. Personally, I believe that you should always be talking about these kind of things, process-based versus result-based, but I think especially with young players where you're not going to get the results you want in a situation like this, it's even more important to highlight from a team perspective.
And then as a player, like, that's tough. You know, you're in your senior season, it's already an emotional time, and there's so much floating around that experience of being a senior and your future being a little uncertain perhaps. What choice do you have other than to keep moving forward? This is your chance to step up even more as a leader. Your role gets, you know, magnified even more. Yeah, it's disappointing, but like you were saying, you can't just give up. You have to own it, and like anything, you have to play the cards you're dealt. You know? You
have to think, I'm going to leave the program in a better place, right? You have your freshmen who are there. If those freshmen are going to be successful down the road, you want them to think, this is what Julia taught me. This is what you left for the program. That way you can stay engaged. It helps you manage your frustration, hopefully. Because again, like you said, what else can you do?
So when I see teams just decimated by injuries, the first thing that comes to mind for me is that there's an issue with the strength and conditioning program. That's what I jump to when I see multiple injuries on the same team. Obviously, like concussions and stuff like that, there are certain things that just don't fall into that category, but I do really think that with the load that these athletes have to, you know, deal with, the strength and conditioning component needs to be as important as the on-court stuff.
I 100% agree with you.
You look like you're thinking something like
that. Well, I have a few caveats to that. One is the sport is becoming so dynamic. You step on somebody's toe and roll your ankle, or take a bad move and blow your knee out. Sometimes there's nothing you can do about those things. Now,
sometimes, but I do think that there are circumstances when, even when things like that happen, it is avoidable.
Sure. Load in terms of fatigue when you're practicing, you know, how much stability work you're doing.
But also load and stuff like that plays into your mental state. And so I think strength and conditioning is a huge component, but I also think your mental headspace contributes to injury or lack thereof as well.
We don't know what the injuries for Minnesota are.
I'm not speaking just about Minnesota.
Fair.
I'm speaking about injuries across the board in general. I'm highlighting Minnesota because they have been decimated by them completely.
One other thing league-wide, because you mentioned having injuries there, is I think a lot of younger players are coming in and playing in the NCAA because we're seeing a lot more seniors graduate. Like you said, there's more load on these athletes who maybe haven't had the years of strength conditioning at the university level, so they're not quite ready for that. Could also be a contributing factor.
The NCAA is definitely pushing and giving a more professional feel. Back in the day, you used to actually hear about what the athletes were majoring in and what they were studying. Nobody cares anymore. It's like, this is a professional sport. Hello.
Are they studying?
Yeah, what? If this is the vibe that's continuing, and I'm an advocate for this even when the NIL wasn't a thing, you need to prioritize your strength and conditioning in the off season. So for volleyball, that's the winter and the summer. You need to stay during the summer. That is what a professional athlete does. You take care of your body and prepare your body to the best of your ability when you're in the off season so that you can make it through a whole season without getting injured. You need to stay for the summer. So another thing that I saw about the injuries, it's being said online that playing on the Terraflex is a cause of injury.
I don't have anything to say to that. You play on a floor.
Terraflex? What? Come on.
Show me the data. I can't get behind that. I don't think it makes a huge difference. Personally, I've played on both. Seems like a conspiracy
If
theory
anybody
to me.
thinks that that's a thing, could somebody explain to us why that would be a thing?
If they're putting the Terraflex straight over concrete,
because I just kind of think it's ludicrous. Like, yeah, if you're doing it like a club volleyball tournament where it's that plastic court over concrete, absolutely, that sucks. But Terraflex is being laid over a wood floor.
I don't think that's a contributing factor.
Yeah.
So, I mean, I think that there are potentially lots of factors for injuries, strength conditioning being one, bad year with freak accidents being another one, young athletes who can't handle the load. There's lots of different reasons why that could be a thing. Hopefully we get through the rest of conference play without too many more injuries. We're going to play a game and it's going to be a volleyball version of Would You Rather.
Okay.
Okay? So here's the premise of this game. We watched a lot of the highest profile players lose this past week. It got me to thinking, which of the teams around these marquee players would you prefer to choose? Like, which parts do you think are better? I'm going to read you the players, and I have 5 of them, and then we're going to go through, and you're going to pick, like, would you rather have this team's left sides? And give me your top 2. Would you rather have this team's middles? Here are the 5 players. I'm going to give you their stats just to go through. The player who scores the most points per set is Heredia Colon at 6.25%. She's number 1. Number 2 is Mimi Collier at Wisconsin, scoring 6 points per set. Then you have Kennedy Martin at number 4, scoring 5.77. Olivia Babcock at number 8, scoring 5.39. And we have to include Logan Lednicki. She's only scoring 4.44, and she's number 65 on the list, but she fits this profile of player that we're talking about.
Okay.
Out of those 5 teams, which set of left sides would you choose?
Collier is a left side.
Let's go other outside hitters. So most of them are right sides, so we're going to go left sides. For Collier, we'll go left side, other left side, and right side. Which outside hitting core outside of that player would you choose?
I guess I'd probably pick Pitt. It was between Pitt and Wisconsin for me.
For Pitt, we would have Moritz, who I believe is the Netherlands girl, and Blair Bayless. And at Wisconsin, we would have, because you're looking at the outside, so it would be either Egan or Quest and Vajic. I think I would go Pitt. I think I like their left sides better. There's a little bit better ball control, and I think they can score better than the other ones.
Fair.
So that would be my pick. What about in the middle?
I'd probably pick Pitt again.
I might go Wisconsin.
Oh, man. Again, it comes down to those 2 teams again.
Dahlia Wilson is very good at Miami, but Logan Wiley is she's a decent blocker, but not really a factor.
They're fine, but I think the other combos are better.
Yeah, I agree. I think I end up with Wisconsin. I lean Wisconsin on this one. And then from a setter standpoint, who would you?
Setting, I would probably say Wisconsin or Miami. I actually really like Rodriguez as a setter.
Oh, those were my choices too. I really liked watching Rodriguez. I think she tries to force the middle in unconventional situations, which I liked. Obviously, in the match we watched Miami play, she set Colon a ton. I
do like that she does unconventional things, like a fake attack to set. Sometimes she tries to do a little too much, but I do like her. All right, it is time for some listener questions. Question 1 is, what are your thoughts on Allie Batenhorst's beach debut? I'll have you guys know, I have not watched beach volleyball since I stopped playing. This made me dive back in. I didn't want to, but I'm doing this for you guys.
So we watched 2 matches. I have a couple of initial thoughts, and then we can talk about Allie in general. I think very few indoor players have successfully made the transition to the beach, so I think this is a huge endeavor for her.
And by successful, we mean like...
world class.
Yeah,
chance
like anybody can go play an AVP.
Yeah, but chance at competing for the Olympics, because that's what Sarah Hughes is trying to do. She wants to be in the conversation at the Olympics. I think this is a huge undertaking, and I know you'll talk Alex Kleinman, but she grew up playing beach in California, so I don't consider that the same thing. She wasn't starting from ground zero, which I don't believe Batenhorst has a ton of experience. So she's starting from the ground up.
Well, she played beach at Nebraska.
I don't think that counts.
Okay.
Watching her play, she did all of the things a skilled indoor volleyball player who is more physical than the people she's playing should do well, in my opinion. But I thought she did the beach-specific things not very well.
She was honestly better than I thought she would be. I had very low expectations, but so she did much better than I thought she would. Her hand, I was impressed that she was hand setting.
Yep.
That was nice.
I liked her decision-making and how aggressive she was at the net. She was going on too. Now,
Sarah Hughes was passing very well and basically teeing her up to just unload on balls. So I think that's more Sarah Hughes.
Yeah, but you still have to have the instinct to do it. And
so she was hitting on two great. When she was put in a good position to score, she was doing a really good job. Her bump setting, her transition setting they need a lot of work.
Yeah.
They are almost unhittable. And she was not moving her feet in the way that she needs to in the sand.
Correct.
On serve receive. She was definitely approaching to the ball where she wanted the set to be and often got caught with the ball flying over her left shoulder. So she needs to learn for sure. She has some things to work on, but I would say overall, she was better than I thought she would be.
The other thing I will say is watching her pass, she is not opening her hips. She's getting jammed by the ball.
Not moving
She's
her feet
not
at all.
moving her feet on the serve receive. I listened to the announcers talk about how good she was in her debut. And the one thing I want to point out is, and I think this is very applicable on the beach, is it's really hard to play against someone when you have zero video.
Oh my gosh, I hated playing against people that I didn't know.
I fully expect them to take a dip after a few tournaments where people can watch Allie, because you still had a lot of people serving Sarah because they knew what they were going to get. I expect them to take a dip before they get better.
Question 2, what are your thoughts on the Stanford freshmen? Logan Parks, Erica Sayer, Spencer Etzler. I think Erica Sayer is really good. I'm so upset we didn't get her for our fantasy team.
Yep, I would agree.
She is going to be outstanding, I think. I think Etzler's fine. She does her job, but she doesn't stand out to me. And then I think Logan Parks is good. When they switched to her running a 5-1, I think things started looking better for Stanford. I like the offense she runs. I think she's got really good hands. But if I was to rank the Stanford freshmen, it would be Sayer, Parks, Etzler. But we were a little curious about how Stanford would do this year with such a young team, and I think that the future looks bright for them.
Well, I was going to say, that's a really good core to build around.
Yeah.
You've got a libero, a setter, and a middle, all the same age. They've come in together.
Some outsides.
Yeah. If you're looking at starting a program, those are three pieces that, if they get to play right away, are going to be very good for 4 years, I think.
Question 3, maybe not a hot take. Do you think there's a chance that Nebraska can make it through the Big Ten without dropping a set?
No.
They will drop a set.
Yeah. The competition is too good. You have to be too clean all year long. Everybody wants a piece of Nebraska, so you're generally getting people's best. Look at the set that they just played against Purdue. Purdue came in and had a really good first set. It was close, and then, nobody can kind of keep up with the balance that they have, but you get people's best at the beginning, so I don't think so.
I will be stunned if they don't drop a set. Question 4. Do you think that higher-ranked colleges and universities no longer want to recruit undersized hitters with higher-level skill sets than their taller counterparts because of the freedom of movement introduced by the transfer portal? This obviously allows top schools to recruit tall projects out of high school and then pivot to those smaller, highly skilled players via the transfer portal once they've seen them prove themselves at smaller or weaker schools.
I think that's definitely part of it. You take a flyer on a big player because you can't teach height and you can't teach how high somebody jumps for the most part. You don't want anybody else to have that player, and then she turns into a 4-time first-team All-American. And if not, you can always go to the portal. Everybody wants to play for your program. I think that take makes a ton of sense. I don't love that mentality, but I think, if I was in a coach's shoes and I saw a girl who was 6'4" and touched 10'8", I'd be like, yeah, let's see what you can do. I believe that I can develop you.
I think another thing to think about too is that because of the nature of how teams play, the undersized, well-skilled attackers, they're not going to be as good at attacking as the 6'5" girl who touches 10'8", and they're not going to be as good at ball control, like serve, receive, and defense, as the 5'2" libero DS. So yes, they are very well skilled, but because of how many substitutions there are and how you can have your big girl in the front row and sub her out for a really skilled defensive player in the back row, I don't agree with this, but I think a lot of coaches see the 6 rotation, well-skilled outside hitters as disposable.
Yeah. You almost
Because
need,
the NCAA system just allows that to happen. Have a really strong, big offensive girl in the front row who can put up a huge block and jump out of the gym, score all those points, and then put a really good defensive player in the back row, and then you get the best of both worlds.
Yeah. You almost need to be a fantastic marketer if you're a smaller, skilled player who still wants to hit. You need to bring an intangible to the table that makes the coach go, we need you even though.
Yeah.
And I think that that's hard to do.
But I think like internationally, you are seeing that those type of players are well suited to the international game because you can't hide behind 15 substitutions.
Yeah.
So those players could have great international careers or professional careers, but with the way the system is designed, might not get a chance in the NCAA, which I, again, will reiterate, I do not agree with it, but it's how the system is created.
Yeah.
Question 5. I found the assessment by position between Texas and Nebraska very interesting. So if you missed that, go back to listener questions from the episode last week where we addressed this. So here's the question. Can a team win a national championship without a pin hitter who's almost an automatic kill machine? Danny Busboom Kelly is preaching the sum of all our parts will prevail, and she may be right, but Nebraska hasn't won since they last had a killer on the pin that everyone knew would get the ball but couldn't stop anyway. I actually can't think of any team who has won it all without someone like that on the pin. Nebraska has come close several times with the sum of all our parts will prevail mentality, but they haven't done it. Can this be the year? I think this is a great question.
I mean, it always helps to have a weapon on the pins that can score you points. It's the hardest thing to do in the game, and if you've got somebody who's automatic, it just goes such a long way. Is it possible to win where the sum is greater than the parts? Absolutely. The thing is, you need more of those parts to have good games at the same time. I think that's where you're going to see whether Nebraska can do that. And quite frankly, Texas, because both of them don't have the quote-unquote superstar, but they're better
Tori
teams.
Stafford.
But I don't think she's the same as Olivia Babcock.
No,
she's not the
fair.
same as Kennedy Martin. Yes, it's possible, but you need more better contributions from your parts when it matters. You don't just have that outlet. And I think it puts more pressure on the setter to make good decisions because you don't just have an outlet.
This has been my criticism of Nebraska for the last little while, is they have been so preoccupied at not having a quote-unquote star that I think it has hurt them. Who cares if you have a star? Who cares if you have like a player that stands out and shines, is picked out individually as being a great player? I think they have gotten so wrapped up in not having that it has hurt them ultimately.
Do you think that's a John thing or a Danny thing or both?
I mean, I think it definitely was a John thing.
Nobody's bigger than the program?
Exactly. And I think that it is possible for certain athletes to be both. I think it's possible for athletes to be ambitious and have a superstar mentality while still prioritizing the team's success. It is definitely possible. And I think Nebraska needs a player like that they haven't had for quite a while. But we'll see. We'll see if they can do it. All right, baby has had enough. So I am finishing this episode solo, everybody. She's been a trooper, but enough's enough. You know what I mean? She's the boss. Looking forward, first of all, the questions that we've been getting for NCAA and stuff have been outstanding. It is so hard to pick like a handful every episode, which is why I'm trying to incorporate them into the discussion sections that we're covering. So keep them coming. I'm trying to get to them all, but you guys are very good. So thank you so much. Looking forward, the ACC has got some killer matchups this week. So definitely check out a bunch of these matches. Thursday, 7 p.m. Eastern, we've got Purdue versus Indiana. The Battle of Indiana. Okay. Indiana hasn't been in the top 25 for a while. So we'll see what happens there. Thursday at 8 p.m., we've got BYU versus Arizona State. And then, as I just mentioned, the ACC showdown happens. So Friday, 7 p.m. Eastern, SMU versus Louisville. Louisville's got quite the weekend because on Sunday at 1 p.m. Eastern, they're facing Pitt. And Sunday at 4, we've got Stanford versus Miami. And Miami has gained some momentum. I think they're playing better, so it'll be really interesting to see them play against a young Stanford team. Watch all or a combination of those matches. I didn't pick any SEC ones this week because the ACC is too good with what they've got going on. So hopefully you'll be able to watch some of those because we're going to be checking them out too. That concludes this week's episode of Volley Talk. There's always something shaking in the volleyball world, and we hope you enjoyed this little fix. Be sure to follow the show so you don't miss any updates, and we'd be so grateful if you'd leave us a 5-star review. You can also find us on Instagram at volleytalk_podcast. If you have a topic you'd like us to discuss, be sure to reach out on Instagram or at info@sarahpavin.com. Thanks so much for joining us, and we'll be back next week.